The Rose That Grew from Concrete by Tupac Shakur. The first thing that you need to do when you go into analyzing any poem is to read it once and then go back through and try to go through line by line and try to find any figurative language and figure out what that figurative language means. All right. Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete? Proving nature's law wrong, it learned to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else even cared. The first thing that we need to think about is, like we said before when we were talking about poetic devices, poets or songwriters are not going to speak on things that they don't know anything about. We know something about our writer here. What do we know about Tupac?
He's a rapper.
He's a rapper. How did he grow up?
Bad.
Bad. I mean, give me more specific than bad.
Rough. Yeah, hard times.
He had hard times. He had a rough life. He actually grew up very poor, in poverty, in what we might call the hood or the ghetto or whatever. By a single mom, and didn't have a lot of money. And in things like when we have a poet and they're writing on things like this, we know that they get these from their own struggles. Just like if they were someone, you might have a woman that writes on heartbreak and she's divorced. We could probably assume that she's writing from her own experience with heartbreak, right? And that's no different here. So let's think about that as we dive in and start dissecting this poem. So we're going to go on the first line here where it says, "Did you hear about the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete?" We first need to start with our first metaphor, which is the rose. It's our first noun, other than you, but it's our first noun that we see here. And we can assume that Rose is a person, maybe even Tupac himself. And then the rose that grew from a crack in the concrete. And a crack in the concrete is our second figurative language. So we know that crack is the crack is something, and the concrete is another piece of figurative language. If you don't know, we'll come back to it. That might be a little bit hard, but if we're thinking about this as Tupac, if we said the rose was Tupac, the concrete or the crack might be, let's think about the literal meaning, the rose and the concrete. If you're walking down the street, let's say you're walking right here by the high school where the concrete is, would you expect to see a rose there?
No.
Why not?
It's all growth.
Where do you normally see roses?
Beside vines.
In a garden, in a bush that normally that someone's taking care of, right? That someone's nurturing and giving maybe plant food and the right amount of sunlight and the right amount of water and all this good stuff. If we see anything in that crack, what is it going to be? Weeds. Why would it be very odd, though, for a rose to grow from that concrete? Do people walk down concrete pathways all the time?
Mm-hmm.
So people's always stomping on it in the ground. And it's got this massive amount of brick or concrete that's blocking the sunlight. Sunlight's good. It's even proven that sunlight increases our endorphins that make us happy. And if you don't ever see any sunlight, a little hard to be happy. So we can assume that maybe the concrete might have been where he grew up. or poverty or something like that. And so he's growing from that crack, that little opening or ray of sunshine, So he grew from that in that hard place to grow. We'll just put there. I didn't mean to do that. All right. So then we go down. Let's go down to our next part. Proving nature's law wrong, it learned to grow without having feet. What is nature's law? Especially if we think about people that grow up in these bad neighborhoods and poverty. What do we call that when we all have automatic ideas?
Stereotype?
Yes. It's, we have these stereotypes. Let's say, society in its whole, or so we'll say society's stereotype. When when society as a whole thinks of this young African American boy, that's growing up in the middle of the ghetto, do we think that they're going to become a doctor?
No.
I mean, they could, right? But do we expect them to?
No.
Why not? We're judging, yeah, we're prejudging, and that's what stereotypes do. We're prejudging.
It's like people like say about the like black forces.
Okay. So he's proving the stereotype wrong by growing out of that. Because it's kind of like this. Let's have like a side real life lesson real quick. The reason that we have these stereotypes is because, and the reason this happens is kind of like this. Just like maybe, society doesn't expect that of them, doesn't really expect that of you either, these middle class families. Does any of you in here have a parent that's a doctor or a lawyer? No. Society expects middle class to stay middle class, because most of the time, in all actuality, we're going to be what we've seen. If you see your dad go to work and work real hard every day, and there's nothing wrong with that. We need hard workers. We need someone to go out there and make steel and weld pipes and do, plumbing and contracting and things like that. If we didn't have that, society wouldn't function. Everybody can't be a doctor or a lawyer. But when you see your dad do these things, or mom, then usually that's what we're going to do. Usually. Sometimes you have, those that might not have ever had anyone in their family go to college, but they do, and they become a nurse or whatever. But most of the time, we're going to do what our parents do. Why do you think that is? Do any of you want to go to college and become a doctor? Why?
Hard.
It's hard. I don't want to do it. But then again, we have these kids at like these private schools, like maybe St. Paul's or McGill-Tulane or things like that, whose parents spend a small fortune to send them to high school, whose parents are, already the doctors and lawyers and CEOs and things like that. And so 95% of the time, those kids are going to go on and do the same thing because that's what dad does and that's what mom does and things like that. And that's why they have this old saying, like, the rich stay rich and the poor stay poor. Because when you're this little kid that's growing up and all you see is, like maybe Tupac, and all you see is, drug dealers, and mom has to get welfare because she can't afford to take care of us and things like that. Most of the time, these kids are approached in 5th or 6th grade, by some older teenager, 18, 19-year-old says, hey, little man, I'll give you X amount of dollars if you go sell this for me, sell some drugs, whatever for him. And while a little kid here, is wearing hand-me-downs, he's probably going to jump on that offer because for once he can probably buy him some Nikes or some Jordans or something. And then by the time they're 18 or 19, they're so far in it that they don't know anything else. And so the loop continues. And it's the same thing with us, and it's the same thing with those upper class people. And that's what he means by nature's law. So if society was telling him, you will never make anything of yourself, he proved it wrong. What does he mean by he learned to walk without having feet? Let's think of this literally for one. If a baby's born without any feet, how's it going to learn to get around? Has to learn how to do it itself. It's got to figure out. Mama can't teach you how to walk if you don't have feet, because mama don't know what that's like, right? You kind of figure out. You might look up these YouTube videos and you see these people that like don't have hands, and so they learn how to use their toes for everything. You know what? You should look up videos like that. There's people that do that. There's people that's actually born like this every day. They have to learn how to do it on their own. There's no one there to teach them. And that's why what he means by I learned to walk without having feet. That means I learned how to do it without having any help. All right. Then we have the third one. It says, funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to breathe fresh air. What does it mean by keeping its dreams? If you keep your dreams and you keep on, what do we call that?
Determination.
Yes. He's determined to get, to succeed in life. So when it kept its dreams, he gets to that breath of fresh air of that success. And then he finally ends it with, long live the rose that grew from concrete when no one else even cared. Why does he say no one else even cared? Does anybody care about the brother of the poor little kid grows up to become a doctor or a drug dealer? When we really truly, we might think we care, but unless we're out there actively trying to help him, that's what he means. He had to do it on his own when no one else even cared to help him. And so as we go into that, now I want you to go into, or I'm sorry, as we finish that, I want you to go to the discussion post, and there will be some questions there for you, and you answer those.